Good evening and welcome. Tonight, there's nothing you need to do. No messages to answer, no deadlines waiting, and no reason to hurry. The modern world can wait a little longer. Instead, allow yourself to drift gently backward through thousands of years, to a place where the rhythm of life was measured not by clocks, but by the rising of the sun, the flowing of the Nile, and the quiet certainty of ancient tradition. Take a slow breath and imagine that the year is around 1470 BCE. Before you stretches the vast kingdom of ancient Egypt, a land unlike any other. To your left, the endless golden desert rolls toward the horizon in silent waves of sand. To your right, the Nile River winds peacefully through the landscape, bringing life wherever its waters reach. Without this river, Egypt would simply be another barren wilderness, but because of it, fields of wheat and barley shimmer beneath the morning light, palm trees sway gently in the breeze, and villages wake each day to the promise of another harvest. Far ahead, resting proudly along the eastern bank of the Nile, stands the magnificent city of Thebes. Even from a distance, its temples dominate the skyline. Massive stone columns rise like forests carved from sandstone, their colorful capitals painted with blooming lotus flowers and graceful papyrus reeds. Tall obelisks catch the first golden rays of sunrise, glowing as though they themselves have captured pieces of the morning sky. As you move closer, the city begins to awaken. The air carries the comforting scent of fresh bread baking inside clay ovens. Somewhere nearby, a potter shapes wet clay with patient hands, while the slow turning of his wheel blends with the distant songs of birds nesting among the palm trees. Fishermen quietly untie their wooden boats, allowing the gentle current of the Nile to guide them into calm waters. Merchants carefully arrange woven baskets filled with figs, dates, onions, and fragrant herbs, preparing for another peaceful day in the marketplace. Nothing feels rushed. Every person seems to understand exactly where they belong. Every movement feels calm, deliberate, and familiar. Above the city, temple bells echo softly across the river, while priests dressed in spotless white linen begin the first sacred rituals of the morning. Wisps of fragrant incense rise into the cool air, carrying prayers toward the heavens long before the streets become busy. The world feels quiet, almost dreamlike, as though time itself has decided to slow its pace. Yet beyond the bustling markets and towering temples lies a place that few people would ever see. Hidden behind enormous sandstone walls decorated with brightly painted hieroglyphs is the royal palace, a city within a city. Inside these walls, elegant gardens bloom throughout the year. Lotus ponds reflect the sky like polished mirrors. Marble walkways wind through groves of sycamore and date palms. Fountains ripple gently, while brightly colored birds flutter between flowering shrubs. Palace servants move silently through shaded courtyards, preparing for another day with practiced grace. And somewhere within these peaceful halls lives one of the most extraordinary women in all of ancient history. Her name is Hatshepsut. Long before historians would remember her as one of Egypt's greatest rulers, she simply awakened each morning to the sounds of birds, flowing water, and the first light spilling across the palace gardens. Tonight, You are not here to witness battles or dramatic legends. You are simply here to experience what it might have felt like to live one quiet day in the remarkable world of Queen Hatshepsut, where every sunrise marked the beginning of another peaceful chapter in one of history's greatest civilizations. As the first rays of sunlight reach the palace, the world inside its walls begins to stir with quiet purpose. There is no shouting, no frantic movement, no hurried footsteps echoing through the halls. Every person knows exactly what must be done, and every task unfolds with calm precision, as though the palace itself has followed the same peaceful rhythm for generations. Long before Queen Hatshepsut opens her eyes, dozens of attendants are already at work. One servant carefully pushes open tall cedar shutters carved with delicate lotus patterns, allowing the cool morning breeze from the Nile to drift gently into the royal chambers. The fresh air carries the faint scent of wet earth, flowering gardens, and distant incense burning inside the temples of Thebes. Another attendant quietly replaces yesterday's flowers with freshly gathered blue lotus blossoms, arranging them inside polished alabaster vases until every corner of the room feels alive with color. Nearby, soft linen curtains sway almost silently as sunlight slowly creeps across polished limestone floors. Tiny specks of dust float through the golden beams, creating a peaceful stillness that seems untouched by time itself. On an elegant wooden table rests everything the queen will need for the morning ahead. Fine white linen garments have been carefully folded until every crease is perfectly straight. A broad ceremonial collar crafted from gold, turquoise, and deep blue lapis lazuli catches the growing sunlight, reflecting gentle flashes of color across the walls. Bracelets, rings, delicate sandals, and a beautifully polished bronze mirror wait patiently beside small alabaster jars filled with fragrant oils made from lotus flowers, myrrh, and cedar wood. Nothing is placed by accident. Every object has its proper place. Every detail reflects centuries of royal tradition. Outside, the palace gardens awaken alongside the city. White ibises wander gracefully beside quiet pools covered with blooming lotus flowers. Bright kingfishers dart low across the water before disappearing among tall reeds. Palm trees whisper softly as the breeze moves through their leaves, while gardeners begin watering rows of flowering plants that perfume the morning air. Beyond the palace walls, life spreads across the Nile Valley. Farmers guide wooden plows through dark, fertile soil left behind by the annual flood. Women grind grain into fresh flour, while bakers slide warm loaves into clay ovens. Potters shape smooth vessels from river clay, and fishermen cast woven nets into calm waters that have fed Egypt for thousands of years. The kingdom does not wake with noise, it wakes with harmony. Everything seems connected: the river, the fields, the temples, the people, and the palace at the heart of it all. Then, almost unnoticed, a quiet movement inside the royal chamber signals the beginning of another day. Queen Hatshepsut slowly rises from her carved cedar bed, greeted not by the sound of trumpets or loud ceremonies, but by birds singing beyond the open windows and the gentle glow of sunlight filling the room. Before speaking a single word, she pauses for a moment, looking toward the Nile as it sparkles beneath the morning sky. For her, this peaceful beginning is more than a daily routine. It is a quiet reminder that the strength of Egypt is not built only by kings, temples, or monuments, but
but by the calm rhythm of ordinary mornings repeated faithfully day after day beneath the eternal sun of the Nile.
The morning sun has now climbed a little higher above the eastern horizon, and with it the palace begins to glow in warm shades of gold. Long shadows stretch across polished limestone courtyards before slowly retreating beneath the bright Egyptian sky. The air has grown pleasantly warm, yet a gentle breeze from the Nile continues to drift through open corridors, carrying with it the scent of fresh water, flowering lotus, and distant incense from the temples of Amun. Queen Hatshepsut has completed the quiet rituals that begin every royal morning. Her attendants have carefully dressed her in flowing white linen, light enough for the Egyptian heat, yet woven so finely that it seems almost weightless. Around her neck rests a magnificent broad collar crafted from rows of gold, turquoise, carnelian, and deep blue lapis lazuli. A pair of delicate gold bracelets catch the sunlight each time she moves, while finely made leather sandals whisper softly against the smooth stone floors. Nothing about her appearance feels excessive. Instead, every detail has been chosen to communicate dignity, balance, and harmony, qualities that the ancient Egyptians believed every ruler should embody. Leaving her private chambers, the queen begins a slow walk through the inner palace. Massive cedar doors stand open, revealing elegant corridors lined with painted columns. Every surface is alive with color. Bright blue lotus blossoms bloom across the walls. Sacred falcons spread their wings above carefully carved hieroglyphs. Images of the Nile, the harvest, and the gods remind every visitor that Egypt's prosperity depends upon the delicate balance between nature, people, and the divine. Servants step quietly aside as their ruler passes. They lower their heads respectfully, not from fear, but from centuries of carefully observed tradition. Hatshepsut acknowledges many of them with the smallest nod or gentle smile. She has lived within these halls for much of her life. Many of the faces she passes each morning have served the royal household since her childhood. Soon she reaches one of her favorite places within the palace grounds. Before her lies a peaceful garden unlike anything most people in Egypt would ever see. Long, reflecting pools shimmer beneath the sunlight, perfectly still except for the gentle circles created by swimming fish. Blue and white lotus flowers float across the surface, opening their petals to greet the warmth of the day. Tall date palms cast cool patches of shade across winding stone paths, while flowering shrubs attract butterflies and brightly colored birds that move effortlessly from tree to tree. The only sounds are flowing water, rustling leaves, and bird song. It is here, away from court officials and ceremonies, that the queen often begins preparing her thoughts for the day ahead. She walks slowly beside the pools, occasionally pausing to admire a blooming flower or watch an ibis standing motionless along the water's edge. In ancient Egypt, gardens were far more than beautiful places. They represented order emerging from chaos. Every carefully planted tree, every pool of water, every blooming lotus reminded the Egyptians that harmony could exist even beside the endless desert. As Queen Hatshepsut continues her peaceful morning walk, it becomes easy to understand why she valued these quiet moments so deeply. Before decisions could be made, before officials arrived, before the responsibilities of an empire filled every hour,
There was always time to listen to the breeze moving through the palms, to watch sunlight dance upon the Nile, and to remember that even the greatest ruler was simply another traveler beneath the eternal Egyptian sky.
After spending a few peaceful moments in the palace gardens, Queen Hatshepsut slowly makes her way toward one of the busiest parts of the royal residence. Unlike the quiet pools and shaded walkways she has just left behind, this section of the palace hums with gentle activity. Yet even here there is no shouting or confusion. Every movement follows an order that has been practiced for generations. The great audience hall is already being prepared. Palace attendants carefully dust enormous stone columns painted with brilliant shades of blue, red, and gold. Fresh rushes are placed neatly across sections of the polished floor, while servants arrange carved wooden chairs for senior officials who will soon arrive from every corner of Egypt. Large bronze braziers release thin ribbons of fragrant incense that drift lazily toward the painted ceiling, filling the vast chamber with the calming scent of myrrh and cedar. Sunlight pours through the high entrances, illuminating hundreds of colorful hieroglyphs carved into the walls. Every image tells a story. Some celebrate successful harvests beside the Nile. Others show peaceful offerings presented to the gods. There are scenes of craftsmen shaping statues, farmers gathering wheat, fishermen casting nets into quiet waters, and royal scribes recording the history of the kingdom upon endless rolls of papyrus. To Queen Hatshepsut, these are more than decorations. They are reminders of what truly keeps Egypt strong. Not only magnificent temples or towering monuments, but ordinary people waking each morning to do their work with patience and care. Soon the first officials begin to arrive. They bow respectfully before taking their places inside the hall. Experienced governors from distant provinces carry neatly rolled reports describing this year's harvest. Royal architects bring carefully drawn plans for temples still under construction. Overseers of granaries record the amount of grain stored after the latest flooding of the Nile. Scribes quietly sharpen their reed pens and prepare fresh sheets of smooth papyrus, ready to preserve every decision made within these walls. Queen Hatshepsut enters without unnecessary ceremony. The conversations naturally fall silent. She walks with calm confidence, neither hurried nor dramatic, acknowledging those gathered with a gentle nod before taking her place upon an elegant throne carved from cedar wood and decorated with gold leaf. Behind her rise painted columns crowned with blooming lotus capitals, symbols of renewal and prosperity. For a few moments no one speaks. The silence itself carries a quiet sense of respect. Outside, birds continue singing among the palace gardens, and somewhere beyond the city walls, the steady waters of the Nile flow exactly as they have for thousands of years. The first matter discussed is neither war nor conquest. Instead, it concerns irrigation canals that will help farmers receive more water during the coming growing season. Next comes news from merchants returning safely from distant trading expeditions, bringing cedar wood from Lebanon, incense from Punt, fine textiles, rare stones, and precious metals that will enrich Egypt without drawing a single sword. Listening carefully, Queen Hatshepsut asks only a few thoughtful questions. She speaks calmly. She never raises her voice.
Each answer is considered before another decision is made. It is this quiet patience that surprises many visitors to her court. Power here is not displayed through fear, it is expressed through wisdom, careful listening, and an understanding that the prosperity of an empire often begins with the smallest decisions. As the meeting continues beneath the warm Egyptian sunlight, the palace remains filled with an atmosphere unlike any battlefield. Here, among painted columns, fragrant incense, and softly scratching reed hands, history is being written not with noise, but with quiet conversation, thoughtful judgment, and the steady confidence of a queen who believes that peace can become the greatest monument of all.
As the morning meeting slowly comes to an end, the atmosphere inside the audience hall becomes lighter. Officials gather their papyrus scrolls, scribes gently roll up freshly written records, and one by one the governors bow before quietly leaving the chamber. Their footsteps fade into the long stone corridors until only the distant sound of birds and flowing fountains remains. Queen Hatshepsut does not immediately return to her private rooms. Instead, she chooses to walk. For the rulers of Egypt, walking through the palace was never simply a way of moving from one place to another. It was an opportunity to see the heart of the kingdom without leaving the palace walls. Every corridor, every workshop, and every courtyard told its own small story. The queen steps into a long shaded passage lined with towering sandstone columns. The ceiling above is painted a deep midnight blue, scattered with tiny golden stars, as though a clear night sky has been brought indoors. Along the walls, colorful reliefs depict scenes of everyday Egyptian life. Farmers harvest grain beneath the warm sun. Fishermen guide papyrus boats across calm water. Bakers prepare bread inside clay ovens, while craftsmen carve statues with remarkable patience. None of these images celebrate great battles. Instead, they celebrate ordinary life. To the ancient Egyptians, prosperity itself was a victory worth remembering. A cool breeze drifts through open windows, carrying the sweet fragrance of blooming lotus flowers from the palace gardens below. Sunlight filters between the columns, creating shifting patterns across the polished limestone floor. The palace feels peaceful, almost timeless. As Queen Hatshepsut continues her walk, she reaches the royal workshops. Here, the atmosphere is completely different from the formal silence of the audience hall, yet it remains wonderfully calm. Instead of conversations about government, the air is filled with the gentle sounds of skilled hands at work. Stone chisels tap softly against limestone. Woodworkers carefully smooth cedar planks using bronze tools polished from years of use. Goldsmiths bend thin sheets of gold into delicate shapes no wider than a finger. Nearby, artists patiently grind colorful minerals into bright pigments. Rich blue from crushed lapis lazuli, deep green from malachite, warm red from iron-rich earth. Every color will soon decorate temple walls, statues, and royal furniture. Queen Hatshepsut pauses beside a master sculptor. Before him rises an unfinished statue nearly twice the height of a man. Although only part of the face has been carved, its calm expression already seems almost alive. The sculptor stops his work and bows respectfully. The queen smiles gently before encouraging him to continue. She watches quietly as each careful strike removes only the smallest piece of stone. There is no rush.
the sculptor knows that creating something meant to last forever cannot be hurried. Perhaps that is one of the greatest lessons hidden within ancient Egypt. The pyramids, the temples, the monuments, none were built in a single season. They grew slowly, one carefully placed stone after another. As Queen Hatshepsut leaves the workshop, the sound of chisels gradually fades behind her. Ahead lies another peaceful corner of the palace, where scribes, artists, and scholars preserve something just as valuable as monuments. Not stone, but knowledge itself.
Leaving the workshops behind, Queen Hatshepsut follows a quiet stone passage that leads toward one of the most respected places within the palace, the royal library and the house of scribes. The sounds of chisels and hammers gradually disappear, replaced by something much softer. The gentle scratching of reed pens against smooth papyrus fills the air, interrupted only by the occasional rustle of a scroll being carefully unrolled. The room is surprisingly peaceful. Sunlight enters through narrow stone windows positioned high above the floor, sending warm beams across rows of cedar shelves stacked with neatly rolled papyrus. Clay jars filled with black and red ink sit beside polished wooden writing boards, while bundles of fresh reeds are tied together with linen cord, ready to become the day's pens. The scent here is unlike anywhere else in the palace. Instead of incense or flowers, the air carries the earthy aroma of papyrus, cedar wood, and freshly prepared ink. Several young apprentice scribes sit cross-legged on woven reed mats, carefully copying older texts under the watchful eyes of experienced masters. Their movements are slow and deliberate. Every hieroglyph must be perfectly formed. A single careless mark could change the meaning of an entire sentence. In ancient Egypt, writing was considered a sacred skill. Very few people could read or write, making the scribes among the most respected members of society. They recorded harvests, royal decrees, temple ceremonies, trade agreements, and stories that would survive long after their own voices had faded from memory. Queen Hatshepsut walks quietly between the rows of scholars. No one seems nervous. The scribes simply bow their heads respectfully before returning to their careful work. Queen Hatshepsut pauses beside an elderly master scribe whose hands, though weathered with age, still move with remarkable precision. Before him lies a beautifully illustrated papyrus showing the winding course of the Nile. Delicate blue pigments trace the river from south to north, while tiny painted villages, temples, and fertile fields line its banks. The old scholar smiles gently as he explains that every season brings subtle changes to the river. Some years the floods are generous, leaving rich black soil across the valley. Other years the waters rise less than expected, requiring careful planning to protect the harvest. Hatshepsut listens with genuine interest. She understands that a ruler cannot depend on only soldiers or monuments. The future of Egypt depends just as much upon knowledge. Knowledge of the stars that guide the calendar, knowledge of the river that feeds the fields, knowledge preserved patiently by generations of scribes whose names history would rarely remember. Nearby, another group carefully illustrates scenes from a recent trading expedition. Their brushes move slowly, adding brilliant colors to ships carrying incense trees, exotic animals, ivory, ebony wood, and precious goods arriving from distant lands.
These images are more than decoration. They are history being recorded while it is still fresh in memory. For several quiet moments, the Queen simply watches. No orders are given, no speeches are made. Only the soft scratching of reed pens continues beneath the warm afternoon light. As the Queen leaves the library, one thought seems almost impossible to ignore. Long after magnificent palaces fade, long after statues lose their faces, and long after rulers become distant memories, the written words created in rooms like this will continue telling their stories to generations yet unborn, allowing the peaceful world of Queen Hatshepsut to live on long after the echoes of her footsteps have disappeared.
Leaving the peaceful silence of the royal library behind, Queen Hatshepsut steps once again into the bright Egyptian sunlight. By now, the morning has gently given way to midday. The warmth of the sun settles across the palace courtyards, yet the carefully designed architecture keeps the walkways pleasantly cool. High limestone walls cast long strips of shade, while narrow channels of flowing water carry a refreshing breeze through the gardens. Unlike many rulers who spent their days hidden behind palace walls, Queen Hatshepsut believed that a queen should understand every part of the kingdom she governed. Although she could not personally visit every village scattered along the Nile each day, she often explored the workshops, kitchens, gardens, and storerooms within the palace itself. These places reflected the daily life of Egypt just as clearly as any distant town. Her first destination is the royal kitchens. As enormous cedar doors swing open, an entirely different world unfolds before her. The room is vast, filled with sunlight pouring through high stone windows. Instead of noise and confusion, there is almost a graceful rhythm to every movement. Bakers knead soft dough upon smooth stone tables, while others carefully shape hundreds of small round loaves before placing them inside glowing clay ovens. The warm scent of freshly baked bread quickly fills the air, mixing with sweet honey, roasted onions, crushed coriander, cumin, and fragrant herbs gathered from the palace gardens. Nothing is wasted. Every ingredient has been measured. Every meal has been planned. The royal cooks bow respectfully as the queen walks among them. One elderly baker proudly offers a freshly baked loaf, its golden crust still warm from the oven. Hatshepsut accepts a small piece with a gentle smile, thanking the man not with grand words, but with simple kindness. It is a gesture that surprises many visitors to the palace. Power in her presence rarely feels distant. Continuing deeper into the kitchens, she watches young assistants carefully grinding grain between heavy stone mills, their movements slow and steady after years of practice. Others prepare bowls of thick lentil stew, roasted duck seasoned with herbs, soft cheeses, fresh fruit, and cool water drawn that very morning from the Nile. Royal meals are certainly more varied than those enjoyed by ordinary farmers, yet they remain remarkably simple by modern standards. Bread, fruit, vegetables, fish, honey, beer brewed from barley. Everything comes directly from the fertile valley that surrounds the great river. Standing quietly beside an open window, Hatshepsut looks toward the distant fields shimmering beneath the afternoon sun. She knows that every loaf placed upon the royal table begins far away, where countless farmers rise before dawn, patiently tending the land that feeds an entire civilization. Without their hands, there would be no palace, no temples, no monuments. Only empty stone beneath the desert sky. For a long moment, she simply watches the Nile flowing peacefully beyond the palace walls.
the same river that nourished kings, fed humble families, inspired poets, and quietly shaped one of the greatest civilizations the world would ever know.
After leaving the warmth of the royal kitchens, Queen Hatshepsut continues her gentle walk through another quiet section of the palace. The afternoon sun now hangs high above Thebes, bathing every sandstone wall in a soft golden glow. The heat outside is unmistakable, yet within the palace the architects have created a world of cool shadows, open courtyards, and flowing air. Long corridors channel the breeze from the Nile, allowing it to drift naturally through the royal residence. She arrives at a wide open courtyard where dozens of artisans are already deeply focused on their work. Unlike the formal halls of government, this place feels alive with quiet creativity. There are no speeches, no ceremonies, only skilled hands patiently transforming simple materials into objects that will outlive generations. On one side of the courtyard, master carpenters carefully shape fragrant cedar wood imported from distant Lebanon. With bronze chisels and polished stone tools, they carve elegant chairs, ceremonial chests, and beautifully decorated doors. Every pattern is measured with astonishing precision. Lotus flowers, papyrus reeds, falcons, and sacred symbols slowly emerge from the smooth wood as though they had always been hidden inside, waiting for careful hands to reveal them. Nearby, goldsmiths work beneath shaded awnings where the sunlight catches tiny flakes of precious metal scattered across their benches. Thin sheets of gold are gently hammered until they become almost as delicate as cloth. Others carefully set polished turquoise, lapis lazuli, and carnelian into necklaces, bracelets, rings, and ceremonial collars destined for temples and members of the royal family. Queen Hatshepsut pauses beside a young apprentice who is polishing a small golden scarab. His hands tremble slightly as he realizes the queen is watching. Instead of hurrying him, she smiles kindly and encourages him to continue. Slowly his confidence returns. The tiny scarab begins to shine beneath the afternoon light until it reflects the surrounding courtyard like a mirror. Not far away, painters sit before enormous limestone panels, carefully mixing their colors from crushed minerals collected across Egypt. Rich blue from lapis lazuli, bright green from malachite, warm red from iron-rich earth, deep yellow from desert ochre. Using brushes made from reeds and soft plant fibers, they bring temples, gardens, birds, and sacred ceremonies to life with remarkable patience. Every stroke is deliberate, every color carries meaning. Nothing is rushed. Across the courtyard, another group of sculptors works on an enormous seated statue commissioned for one of Hatshepsut's temples. The figure is still unfinished. Its broad shoulders have already emerged from the stone, while the calm expression of the face slowly begins to appear beneath careful hands. Each strike of the chisel echoes softly through the courtyard, followed by long moments of silence as the craftsmen study their work before making the next cut. The queen watches quietly. She understands something many rulers forget. Great monuments are never created in a single day. They are built through thousands of small, patient efforts, repeated with care until ordinary work becomes extraordinary achievement.
As she prepares to leave, the artisans bow respectfully before returning to their craft without interruption. Their tools continue moving with the same steady rhythm as before. The palace slowly disappears behind her as she steps once more into the warm afternoon sunlight. Ahead, beyond the gardens and towering walls, the sacred temples of Thebes rise proudly toward the clear Egyptian sky. And that is where the Queen's peaceful journey will lead next.
As Queen Hatshepsut leaves the royal workshops behind, the sounds of chisels, hammers, and quiet conversation slowly fade into the distance. Ahead of her, the skyline of Thebes is dominated by something far greater than any palace. Towering above the city rise the sacred temples, their massive stone walls glowing beneath the warm afternoon sun. From almost every corner of the capital, these temples can be seen, watching silently over the Nile Valley, just as they have for generations. Today, the Queen has decided to visit the greatest of them all, the Temple of Amun at Karnak. Her journey is not long, but it is unhurried. A beautifully crafted ceremonial chariot waits outside the palace gates, shaded beneath woven linen canopies. Two magnificent horses stand calmly beside it, their polished leather harnesses decorated with simple gold ornaments that catch the sunlight whenever they move. As Hatshepsut steps into the chariot, the royal guards bow respectfully, and with the quiet signal of the driver, the horses begin walking at a slow, comfortable pace. The streets of Thebes are alive, yet wonderfully peaceful. Merchants greet one another as they arrange baskets overflowing with dates, figs, grapes, onions, and fragrant herbs. Potters display rows of freshly fired clay jars that glow softly beneath the afternoon sun. Weavers sit beneath shaded awnings, patiently guiding fine linen through wooden looms with movements perfected over many years. Children laugh as they chase one another through narrow streets before stopping respectfully as the royal procession passes. Their parents bow gently, not with fear, but with quiet admiration for the woman who has brought years of stability to Egypt. The Queen acknowledges them with a warm smile. She has never believed that greatness is measured only by magnificent monuments. It is also measured by peaceful streets, by full granaries, by thriving markets, and by families who can sleep without fearing tomorrow. The chariot continues along a wide ceremonial avenue lined with rows of magnificent ram-headed sphinxes. Each statue seems almost alive beneath the afternoon light, their carved faces calm and timeless. Palm trees sway gently overhead, while colorful banners flutter softly in the warm breeze drifting from the Nile. In the distance, Karnak Temple grows larger with every passing moment. Its enormous sandstone walls rise higher than anything surrounding them. Giant flagpoles stand proudly beside the entrance, while brilliant banners ripple slowly against the deep blue Egyptian sky. As the chariot comes to a gentle stop, Queen Hatshepsut steps onto smooth stone paving that has been warmed by the afternoon sun. Before her stretches one of humanity's greatest architectural achievements. Massive pylons guard the entrance like silent mountains carved by human hands. Towering obelisks pierce the sky, their polished surfaces shining like gold beneath the brilliant sunlight. Beyond them waits an endless forest of colossal stone columns, so immense that a person standing beside one appears almost insignificant. For a long moment, the Queen simply stands in silence.
Even after visiting countless times, Karnak still fills her with quiet wonder. The air is fragrant with burning incense. White doves circle above the temple walls. Somewhere deep within the sanctuary, the gentle sound of priests chanting ancient hymns drifts softly through the warm afternoon air. Hatshepsut takes one slow breath before beginning the peaceful walk toward the sacred entrance. Here, surrounded by stone that has witnessed centuries of Egyptian history, the busy world beyond the temple walls slowly disappears, replaced by a feeling of calm, reverence, and timeless stillness.
The higher Queen Hatshepsut climbs, the quieter the world becomes. By the time she reaches the second terrace of her magnificent temple, the sounds of chisels and workers have faded into the background. Only the gentle whisper of the desert wind remains, moving softly through the long rows of sandstone columns. The air feels different here, dry, warm, and wonderfully still. Above her stretches an endless blue sky, while behind the temple the towering limestone cliffs rise almost vertically, protecting the sanctuary like silent guardians that have watched over this valley for countless ages. She pauses beneath the shade of a colonnade. Each column is enormous, yet perfectly balanced, supporting elegant stone beams decorated with brightly painted reliefs. Although many of the colors will one day fade beneath centuries of sun and wind, today they remain vibrant. Deep reds, brilliant blues, rich greens, and warm golden yellows cover the walls, telling stories without a single spoken word. Queen Hatshepsut walks slowly along the carved reliefs. One panel shows ships sailing across distant seas towards the mysterious land of Punt. Their white linen sails are full of wind as they carry gifts back to Egypt, fragrant incense trees with their roots carefully wrapped in baskets, polished ebony wood, ivory, exotic animals, and rare treasures from lands that many Egyptians would never see with their own eyes. The queen stops for a moment. This expedition is one of her proudest achievements, not because it brought wealth alone, but because it was accomplished through peaceful trade rather than conquest. The carved sailors smile as they unload their precious cargo. Foreign merchants greet Egyptian officials with respect. Even in stone, the scene feels calm and welcoming. Further along the terrace, another relief captures skilled farmers harvesting golden grain beside the Nile. Men cut tall stalks with curved sickles, while women gather them into neat bundles. Children help carry baskets beneath the shade of date palms, and nearby, oxen slowly pull wooden sledges loaded with freshly harvested wheat. Everything about the scene celebrates abundance. There are no battles, no frightened crowds, only ordinary people living ordinary lives. Queen Hatshepsut believed these moments deserved to be remembered just as much as the victories of kings. As she continues walking, the afternoon sunlight gradually softens. Long shadows stretch across the polished limestone floor, giving the temple an almost dreamlike appearance. A pair of white doves land quietly upon one of the upper columns before taking flight once again, disappearing into the vast desert sky. Reaching the highest terrace, the queen turns towards the Nile Valley below. The view is breathtaking. Far across the green ribbon of fertile land, the temples of Karnak and Luxor rise proudly above the trees.
Tiny fishing boats drift peacefully along the river, their white sails glowing beneath the late afternoon sun. Fields of barley shimmer gently in the breeze, while distant villages seem almost miniature against the endless landscape. For several quiet moments, Queen Hatshepsut says nothing. She simply watches. She watches the river that has given life to Egypt for thousands of years. She watches the people who work its fertile banks. She watches the temples rising towards the heavens. And perhaps she wonders whether this magnificent place she has built will still be standing long after her own footsteps have vanished from these stone terraces. The desert wind answers only with silence. It carries no promise, no certainty, only the quiet reminder that while every human life eventually passes, the greatest creations of patience, wisdom, and peace have a remarkable way of speaking to generations yet unborn. With one final glance across the glowing Nile Valley, Queen Hatshepsut gently turns towards the staircase, ready to continue her peaceful journey as the golden afternoon slowly begins to fade into evening.
As Queen Hatshepsut leaves the high terraces of Deir el-Bahari, the afternoon slowly begins its quiet journey toward evening. The bright Egyptian sun is no longer directly overhead. Instead, its light has softened, spreading warm shades of amber across the limestone cliffs. Every column casts long, graceful shadows upon the stone walkways, and the entire temple seems to glow with a peaceful golden radiance. For a few moments, the queen chooses not to return to her chariot. Instead, she walks. A wide stone pathway leads gently away from the temple, winding through carefully planted gardens that stand in remarkable contrast to the surrounding desert. Tall incense trees, brought many years earlier from the distant land of Punt, sway gently in the warm breeze. Their fragrant leaves release a subtle perfume into the evening air, reminding everyone who passes that peaceful trade can leave gifts that last far longer than victory in battle. The queen pauses beside one of the young trees. Its trunk has grown stronger since it was first planted. Its branches now reach confidently toward the sky. She gently touches one of its leaves before continuing her slow walk. Nearby, gardeners quietly tend flowering beds filled with blue lotus, white lilies, and colorful desert blossoms. Clay jars collect precious water carried from the Nile, allowing every plant to flourish despite the dry landscape surrounding them. Small birds flutter between the branches, while butterflies drift lazily above the flowers, almost dancing in the warm afternoon light. The silence here feels different from the silence inside Karnak Temple. There, silence belonged to prayer. Here, it belongs to nature. Beyond the gardens, the desert stretches endlessly toward the western horizon. Waves of golden sand meet rugged limestone cliffs sculpted by wind and time. The landscape appears almost empty, yet it never feels lifeless. Every rock, every shadow, every gentle breeze seems to carry thousands of years of quiet history. As Hatshepsut continues walking, she notices a group of young apprentice builders resting beneath a shaded shelter after many hours of work. Their tools lie neatly beside them: bronze chisels, wooden mallets, measuring cords, and smooth polishing stones worn soft through years of careful use. They rise immediately when they see the queen approaching. But instead of demanding ceremony, she simply invites them to remain where they are. She asks about their work. One young mason proudly explains how even the smallest carved relief may require several days of careful effort before it is considered complete. Another describes the challenge of moving enormous limestone blocks across the desert without damaging their perfectly smooth surfaces. The queen listens with genuine curiosity. She understands something that history often forgets. Great monuments are remembered by the names of rulers, but they are created by the patient hands of thousands of ordinary people. Every polished column, every carved staircase, every painted relief, every towering wall exists because countless craftsmen devoted years of their lives to work that few visitors would ever fully notice. As the apprentices return to their tasks, Hatshepsut continues toward a quiet overlook above the Nile Valley. The evening breeze grows cooler. Far below, sunlight reflects from the river like flowing gold. Tiny sailing boats drift peacefully with the current, their white linen sails glowing against the deep blue water. Smoke rises gently from distant village homes as families begin preparing their evening meals. From this height, Egypt appears calm, balanced, prosperous, and wonderfully peaceful. Standing alone above the valley, Queen Hatshepsut smiles softly. For this single quiet moment, there are no royal meetings, no ceremonies, no decisions waiting to be made. Only the endless Nile, the golden desert, and the comforting feeling that the kingdom below is ending another peaceful day exactly as it should.
The sun continues its slow descent toward the western horizon, and with every passing moment, the colors of Egypt begin to change. The brilliant blue sky softens into shades of amber, rose, and pale violet. Long shadows stretch across the fertile fields beside the Nile, while the limestone cliffs surrounding Deir el-Bahari glow with a warm golden light that seems almost unreal. Queen Hatshepsut begins the journey back toward Thebes. The royal chariot moves at an easy pace, its wooden wheels rolling quietly along the well-traveled road that follows the river. There is no urgency. In ancient Egypt, the final hours of daylight were never rushed. They belonged to reflection, to gratitude, and to preparing for another peaceful evening. As the chariot reaches the riverbank, Queen Hatshepsut asks the driver to stop for a while. She steps down onto the soft earth beside the Nile. The river flows exactly as it has for thousands of years, steady, patient, and completely untroubled by the passing of human lives. A group of fishermen are returning home after a long day's work. Their small wooden boats glide gently through the calm water, loaded with woven baskets holding the day's catch. They speak quietly among themselves, their laughter carried softly across the river by the evening breeze. Nearby, women wash linen along the river's edge, while children play happily in the shallow water, sending gentle ripples across the glowing surface. Date palms sway overhead, their leaves whispering with every movement of the wind. Farther away, farmers slowly guide their oxen back toward the villages after spending the entire day working beneath the Egyptian sun. Bundles of harvested grain rest neatly upon wooden carts, while flocks of white birds circle above the freshly watered fields, searching for insects hidden within the rich black soil left behind by the Nile's annual flood. Queen Hatshepsut watches quietly. These simple moments bring her genuine comfort. The laughter of children,
the songs of birds returning to their nests, the peaceful rhythm of boats drifting home. These are the true signs of a prosperous kingdom. A kingdom is not measured only by its temples or its treasures. It is measured by evenings like this. Evenings when families return safely home, when markets slowly close after another successful day, when the scent of fresh bread and roasting vegetables begins drifting from village homes, when the only sounds filling the air are the gentle voices of neighbors greeting one another before nightfall. The queen kneels briefly beside the river and lets her fingers touch the cool water. Tiny circles spread outward across the calm surface before disappearing completely. For a moment, she simply watches those ripples fade. Perhaps they remind her how every action, no matter how small, travels farther than we can ever see. A wise decision, a kind word, a peaceful choice, like ripples upon the Nile, their effects continue long after the moment itself has passed. As the first stars begin to appear above the eastern sky, the queen rises once again. The palace lights of Thebes can already be seen glowing softly in the distance. Oil lamps flicker behind palace windows. Temple fires burn steadily beneath towering columns. The city is preparing for another quiet night beside the eternal river. Queen Hatshepsut steps back into her waiting chariot. Without a single spoken command, the horses begin walking once more, carrying their queen through the cool evening air toward a palace where another peaceful chapter of her remarkable life is waiting to unfold.
By the time Queen Hatshepsut reaches the gates of the royal palace, the sun has disappeared behind the western cliffs. A soft blue twilight settles over Thebes, wrapping the great city in a peaceful calm. One by one, bronze oil lamps are lit along the palace walls, their small golden flames flickering gently in the evening breeze. From a distance, the palace seems less like a fortress and more like a constellation of warm lights resting quietly beside the Nile. The large cedar gates open without a sound. The royal chariot rolls slowly across the polished stone courtyard before coming to a gentle stop. Palace attendants bow respectfully as the queen steps down, but the atmosphere is far different from the busy hours of the morning. The day's official duties have ended. Conversations are softer now, footsteps slower. Even the palace itself seems ready to rest. Hatshepsut walks through a long colonnade where hundreds of small oil lamps cast dancing shadows across brightly painted walls. The murals appear almost alive beneath the flickering light. Falcons spread their wings across blue ceilings. Lotus flowers bloom endlessly along the columns. Sacred boats sail through painted rivers that have remained unchanged for generations. The cool evening air flows gently through the open corridors. Somewhere nearby, the quiet melody of a harp begins to echo through the palace. Its slow, graceful notes drift from one courtyard to another, blending with the gentle splash of fountains hidden among the gardens. The queen follows the sound. Soon she arrives at one of her favorite places within the palace, an open courtyard surrounded by flowering trees and reflecting pools. The heat of the day has finally faded. White lotus flowers, closed beneath the afternoon sun, now begin opening beneath the cool evening air.
Their sweet fragrance spreads across the garden, mixing with the scent of jasmine and freshly watered earth. Several musicians sit quietly beneath a shaded pavilion. One plays a beautifully carved wooden harp. Another gently taps a small hand drum with slow, measured rhythm. A third softly shakes a bronze sistrum, its delicate sound sparkling like tiny bells in the night. No grand performance has been arranged. The music exists simply because evening has arrived. Queen Hatshepsut sits upon a carved cedar bench overlooking the reflecting pool. She closes her eyes for just a moment, listening. There are no petitions waiting, no architects requesting approval, no governors reporting harvests, only music, water, birds settling into the trees, and the peaceful whisper of the Nile somewhere beyond the palace walls. Across the courtyard, servants quietly prepare the evening meal. Clay lamps illuminate long wooden tables where fresh bread, ripe figs, sweet dates, roasted vegetables, honey, soft cheese, and cool jars of fresh water are carefully arranged. Nothing is extravagant. Everything feels calm. Everything feels balanced. Above the gardens, the first stars begin appearing one by one across the darkening sky. Ancient Egyptian astronomers often watched these same stars, using them to measure time, guide ceremonies, and understand the changing seasons. Queen Hatshepsut lifts her eyes toward the heavens. For a few peaceful moments, she simply watched the stars appear. The same stars her ancestors had watched, the same stars her descendants would one day see. Quiet reminders that while human lives are brief, the sky above Egypt remains beautifully unchanged night after peaceful night.
The gentle music slowly comes to an end, not because anyone asks it to stop, but because the evening itself seems to grow quieter. One by one, the musicians lower their instruments. The last notes of the harp linger in the cool night air before fading into silence, leaving only the soft murmur of flowing water and the occasional call of a night bird somewhere beyond the palace gardens. Queen Hatshepsut remains seated beside the reflecting pool for a little while longer. The surface of the water is perfectly still. Hundreds of tiny stars shimmer upon it like scattered jewels, interrupted only when a light breeze sends gentle ripples drifting across the pond. Oil lamps placed along the stone pathways cast warm circles of golden light that dance upon the water, making the entire garden feel almost magical. An attendant quietly approaches, carrying a simple tray. Upon it rests a small cup filled with a warm herbal drink prepared from mint and fragrant desert herbs, along with a few fresh dates gathered earlier that afternoon from the palace orchards. The queen thanks the servant with a quiet smile. No elaborate ceremony follows. Even within the royal household, the final hours of the day belong to peace rather than formality. Slowly she rises and begins walking through the moonlit gardens. The pathways wind between flowering lotus ponds, tall sycamore trees, and graceful date palms whose leaves rustle softly in the evening breeze. The fragrance of jasmine fills the air, while white blossoms blow gently beneath the light of the rising moon. Above her, the sky has become breathtakingly clear. Thousands of stars stretch across the heavens from one horizon to the other.
The ancient Egyptians often imagined that the stars were the eternal companions of the gods, watching silently over the land while the Nile continued its endless journey toward the sea. Queen Hatshepsut pauses beneath a tall palm tree and looks upward. Without the bright lights of the modern world, the night sky appears almost impossibly brilliant. The Milky Way stretches like a pale river across the darkness, mirroring the great Nile flowing quietly below. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, fishermen guide their small boats home, using nothing more than the stars above and the gentle current beneath them. Temple priests light the final incense of the evening before closing the great wooden doors of the sanctuaries until dawn. In the villages scattered along the riverbanks, families gather together for simple meals of fresh bread, vegetables, fish, and sweet fruit before quietly preparing for sleep. Children who spent the day laughing beside the Nile are already dreaming. Farmers rest their tired hands after another successful harvest. The entire kingdom slowly settles into peaceful silence. Hatshepsut walks onto a wide stone terrace overlooking the Nile. From here, she can see hundreds of tiny lights flickering across the distant city of Thebes. Temple columns stand as dark silhouettes against the moonlit sky, while the calm river reflects both the stars above and the lamps below, until it becomes impossible to tell where heaven ends and Egypt begins. She rests her hands gently upon the cool stone railing. There is nothing left to decide today. No meetings, no petitions, no ceremonies. Only gratitude for another peaceful day in a kingdom flourishing through wisdom, patience, and quiet determination. After a few final moments beneath the stars, Queen Hatshepsut turns and walks slowly back through the silent corridors of the royal residence. Her footsteps echo softly across the polished limestone floor before disappearing into the stillness of the royal residence. Tomorrow, another sunrise will once again illuminate the Nile, awaken the temples, and begin another chapter in the extraordinary life of one of ancient Egypt's greatest queens. But for tonight, the palace sleeps, and so does Egypt.
The night passes quietly over ancient Egypt, while the palace rests beneath the stars and the Nile continues its endless journey through the valley. The world never truly stands still. Somewhere in the darkness, the river gently laps against its banks. A fisherman checks the rope securing his small wooden boat before returning home. Temple guardians keep silent watch beside towering stone gateways, their oil lamps burning steadily until the first light of morning. Above them all, countless stars slowly make their way across the sky, just as they have done for thousands of years. Then, almost unnoticed, the eastern horizon begins to brighten. At first, it is only a faint silver glow. Then soft shades of pink and gold slowly spread across the desert, touching the tops of the distant mountains before reaching the fertile fields below. The cool air of the night lingers for a little while longer, carrying with it the scent of damp earth, lotus flowers, and fresh river water. Another day is beginning. Inside the royal palace, the first servants quietly awaken. Oil lamps that burned throughout the night are gently extinguished one by one as sunlight replaces their warm glow. Courtyards are swept until every stone shines.
Fresh flowers gathered before dawn are placed inside polished alabaster vases. Bakers begin preparing the day's first bread, while gardeners carry cool water to the lotus ponds before the desert heat returns. The palace wakes exactly as it did yesterday, calmly, patiently, without haste. Queen Hatshepsut steps onto her private balcony just as the sun rises over the eastern bank of the Nile. She stands alone. There are no attendants nearby, no musicians, no court officials waiting with scrolls and reports. Only the quiet sound of birds greeting the morning and the peaceful river flowing far below. From this height she can see much of her kingdom awakening. Small fishing boats glide across the calm water, their reflections stretching like ribbons of gold beneath the morning sun. Farmers begin walking toward fertile fields, carrying simple wooden tools across their shoulders. Smoke rises gently from village homes where families prepare breakfast before another day's work. Temple doors slowly open.
Crossing the enormous stone gateway, Queen Hatshepsut enters the sacred world of Karnak Temple. Almost immediately, the sounds of the city begin to disappear behind her. The lively marketplaces, the distant conversations, even the gentle creaking of boats along the Nile seem to fade into silence. Inside these ancient walls, everything feels slower, calmer, almost untouched by time. The air is noticeably cooler. Towering sandstone walls block the strongest rays of the afternoon sun, creating long bands of shade across the smooth stone pathways. With every step, the scent of burning frankincense and myrrh grows stronger, drifting softly through the temple like an invisible ribbon. It is a fragrance that has welcomed priests, queens, and ordinary pilgrims for countless generations. Ahead lies the famous Great Hypostyle Hall. As Queen Hatshepsut walks inside, the sheer scale of the place is almost impossible to comprehend. Hundreds of colossal columns rise high above her, their capitals carved into blooming papyrus flowers. The columns stand so close together they resemble a forest made entirely of stone. Sunlight slips through narrow openings far above, sending brilliant shafts of golden light into the cool darkness below. Tiny particles of incense float lazily through those beams, making the whole feel almost dreamlike. Every surface tells a story. Hieroglyphs cover the columns from floor to ceiling. Scenes of peaceful harvests, sacred festivals, offerings to the gods, royal ceremonies, and generations of Egyptian rulers who came here long before Hatshepsut was born. She pauses for a moment and gently places her hand upon one of the ancient columns. The stone feels cool beneath her fingertips despite the warmth outside. How many kings had stood here before her? How many priests had whispered prayers within these walls? How many quiet mornings had begun exactly like this one? The temple keeps those answers to itself. Further inside, a group of priests dressed in spotless white linen quietly prepare the afternoon offering. One carefully lights fresh incense, while another arranges baskets filled with bread, ripe figs, dates, grapes, fragrant flowers, and cool jars of water on polished stone altars. There is no urgency in their movements. Every action follows traditions passed from teacher to student across hundreds of years. A deep bronze sistrum rings softly somewhere within the sanctuary. Its gentle sound echoes through the enormous hall before fading once again into silence. Queen Hatshepsut bows her head respectfully. For several peaceful moments she says nothing. She simply watches the incense rise slowly toward the high stone ceiling, disappearing into the shafts of sunlight above.
It is a quiet reminder that even the greatest rulers considered themselves only temporary caretakers of a kingdom far older than themselves. Outside these temple walls, merchants continue trading, farmers tend their fields, fishermen guide their boats across the Nile, and children play beneath the palm trees. Life continues, steady, peaceful, unhurried. As the queen slowly turns to leave the sanctuary, the golden afternoon light pours once again across the temple entrance. Beyond the sacred halls, another part of her remarkable day quietly awaits, one that will carry her from the timeless silence of Karnak Temple back towards the magnificent monuments that she herself is creating for generations yet to come.
Leaving the quiet sanctuary of Karnak behind, Queen Hatshepsut steps back into the warm Egyptian afternoon. For a brief moment she pauses at the top of the temple steps, allowing her eyes to adjust to the brilliant sunlight. The sky above Thebes is a clear, endless blue, broken only by a few white birds circling lazily over the temple towers. A gentle breeze carries the scent of the Nile, mixed with incense that still drifts from the sacred halls behind her. Rather than returning directly to the palace, the queen has another destination in mind. It is a place unlike any other in Egypt, a place that exists because of her own vision. Her magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. The royal chariot rolls westward, leaving the busy eastern bank of the Nile behind. Soon the sounds of the city begin to disappear. The lively markets, the voices of merchants, and the songs of fishermen slowly fade until only the quiet rhythm of the horses' hooves remains. The landscape changes with every passing moment. Green fields slowly give way to golden sand. Palm groves become fewer. The fertile valley narrows as towering limestone cliffs begin to rise from the desert floor like enormous walls carved by nature itself. The western bank of the Nile has always held a special meaning for the ancient Egyptians. It was where the sun disappeared each evening before beginning its journey toward another dawn. Because of this, it became closely connected with memory, eternity, and the peaceful passage of time. Queen Hatshepsut gazes quietly across the desert. She has traveled this road many times before, yet every journey feels different. As the chariot rounds the final bend, her temple gradually comes into view. At first, it appears almost like a natural extension of the cliffs themselves. Then, little by little, its graceful terraces emerge from the rock. Wide staircases rise toward elegant colonnades. Perfectly balanced rows of towering pillars stretch across each level. The pale limestone reflects the afternoon sunlight so beautifully that the entire structure seems to glow against the warm desert mountains behind it. There is nothing harsh about its design, no overwhelming decorations, no unnecessary grandeur. Instead, every line feels calm, balanced, and perfectly proportioned. Even after thousands of years, architects around the world would admire its remarkable harmony. The chariot comes to a gentle stop. Queen Hatshepsut steps onto the smooth stone pathway leading toward the lower terrace. Several architects and master builders are already waiting nearby. Their linen robes are lightly dusted with pale limestone powder, evidence of another productive day's work.
They bow respectfully as the queen approaches, but she quickly gestures for them to continue their work. She does not wish to interrupt. Instead, she enjoys watching. Stonemasons carefully smooth enormous limestone blocks using bronze tools worn shiny from years of use. Others polish towering columns until they almost seem to glow beneath the afternoon sun. Nearby, painters prepare natural pigments from crushed minerals, ready to fill carved reliefs with brilliant reds, deep blues, rich greens, and warm golden ochres. No one appears hurried. Every craftsman understands that they are creating something intended to last not for years, but for centuries, perhaps even millennia. Queen Hatshepsut slowly climbs the broad central staircase, pausing halfway to look back across the Nile Valley. Far in the distance, the green ribbon of life winds peacefully through the desert. Tiny villages dot its banks. Fishing boats drift silently across calm water. Beyond them, the temples of Thebes rise proudly beneath the afternoon sun. For a long, quiet moment, she simply stands there, not as a queen surrounded by power, but as a woman watching the civilization she loves stretching peacefully toward the horizon.
Priests begin the first prayers of the morning. Merchants arrange baskets filled with figs, dates, onions, grain, and fragrant herbs as the marketplaces prepare to welcome another peaceful day. Nothing appears extraordinary, yet perhaps that is the greatest achievement of all. Peace rarely announces itself. It lives quietly within ordinary mornings. It exists in full granaries, in children laughing beside the Nile, in craftsmen patiently shaping stone, in merchants trading instead of fighting, in families ending each day together beneath the same stars. Queen Hatshepsut smiles softly as the sunlight spreads across the valley. The monuments she has built may stand for thousands of years. The temples may inspire generations yet unborn. But perhaps her greatest legacy is something much simpler. A kingdom that learned how prosperity could grow from patience, wisdom, and peace. As the golden light fills every corner of the Nile Valley, the Queen takes one final look across the beautiful land she has devoted her life to protecting. Then, with quiet confidence, she turns and walks back into the palace, ready to welcome another peaceful day in the timeless world of ancient Egypt. And with that gentle sunrise, our journey through the life of Queen Hatshepsut comes to a peaceful end. Sleep well, and thank you for traveling through history with me.
The morning sun now rests comfortably above the horizon, bathing the Nile Valley in a warm, golden light. Life has fully awakened across Egypt, yet everything still moves with the same calm rhythm that has guided this land for countless generations. There is no rush, no unnecessary noise, only the steady heartbeat of a civilization living in harmony with the river that has sustained it for thousands of years. From the balcony of the royal palace, Queen Hatshepsut watches the world below one final time. Small fishing boats glide gracefully across the Nile, their reflections shimmering like liquid gold upon the gentle current. Along the fertile riverbanks, farmers continue their work beneath the growing warmth of the sun, carefully tending fields that will soon provide bread for families throughout the kingdom. Palm trees sway lazily in the breeze, while flocks of white ibises rise into the clear blue sky before settling once again among the reeds. Thebes is alive. Yet it is a peaceful kind of life. Merchants welcome their first visitors of the day with warm smiles rather than hurried voices. Potters patiently shape fresh clay upon spinning wheels. Weavers bide fine linen through wooden looms with practiced hands. Children chase one another through narrow streets before stopping to admire a passing caravan of donkeys carrying baskets filled with grain, fruit, and fragrant herbs. Everywhere she looks, Hatshepsut sees ordinary people living ordinary lives. And perhaps that has always been the greatest success any ruler could hope to achieve. Not endless conquest, not constant displays of power, but quiet mornings where families wake without fear, fields rich with harvest, markets filled with honest trade, temples where prayers rise peacefully with the morning incense, a kingdom where tomorrow feels as safe as today. As she slowly walks through the palace one last time, familiar sights greet her at every turn. The lotus ponds sparkle beneath the sunlight. Gardeners trim flowering shrubs with gentle care. Palace attendants greet one another with quiet smiles as they begin another day of service. Somewhere deep within the palace, the soft notes of a harp begin to play once again, drifting through the stone corridors exactly as they did yesterday, and the day before, and countless mornings before that. The queen pauses beside one of the great windows overlooking the Nile. For a long moment, she says nothing.
She simply watches. The river continues flowing northward, never stopping, never hurrying. Empires will rise. Empires will fade. Great rulers will come and go. Temples may weather beneath centuries of desert wind. Even the brightest colors carved into stone will slowly soften beneath the passing of time. Yet the Nile will continue its quiet journey, just as it always has. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson ancient Egypt leaves behind. True greatness is rarely loud. It is found in patience, in careful craftsmanship, in wisdom shared between generations, in peaceful mornings and quiet evenings, in choosing to build rather than destroy, in leaving behind something beautiful for people you will never meet. Today, more than 3,000 years after Queen Hatshepsut walked these palace halls, her temples still rise against the cliffs of Deir el-Bahari. Her obelisks still catch the sunlight. Her story continues to inspire travelers, historians, and dreamers from every corner of the world. And now, as our own quiet journey through ancient Egypt comes gently to an end, the palace grows still once more. The breeze continues to ripple across the Nile. The birds drift peacefully above the river. The golden sunlight warms the ancient stones. And somewhere, beyond the endless desert, history quietly whispers its final goodnight. Thank you for spending this peaceful evening in the remarkable world of Queen Hatshepsut. May your thoughts become lighter. May your mind grow quieter. And may sleep find you as gently as the timeless waters of the Nile, flowing peacefully beneath the stars.